Omajnanatimandasya Chandana Slakya Sakshamritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Sinyavadi Paskachai Tasatarane Srila Prabhupada Ki. So today we will discuss Canto 3, Chapter 14, the pregnancy of Diti in the evening, verses 17 till 51. So I will read text 17. So Diti is seducing her husband.
Recording in progress.
And we will hear now the reply from Kashyapa Muni. So text 17. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Esateham vidasyami prichyam bhyo yadichyasi Tasya kamam naka kuyat siddhistrai varhikiyata. So this is Kashyapa Muni replying. O afflicted one, I shall forthwith gratify whatever desire is dear to you. For who else but you is the source of the three perfections of liberation? So, Srila Prabhupada makes the point in the purport, a faithful wife and a spiritually trained brahmachari are a good combination for the advancement of the human mission. So, only a Vaishnava has real integrity. Integrity means following principles. So Giraj Maharaj said, that Srila Prabhupada once said to the devotees that the difference between you and me is that I cannot fall down and that you will fall down. And then later Srila Prabhupada prayed before the deities, and a devotee asked what he was praying for. Srila Prabhupada said he prayed to the deities to not let him fall down. And Srila Prabhupada said, that is why I'm not falling down, because I constantly pray. So we see, like, we will hear about Kardama Muni later. He was a Vaishnava following principles. He was much more spiritually stronger than Kashyapa Muni. Kashyapa Muni, a worshipper of Lord Shiva, practicing spiritual trance to merge with Brahman. So text 18. As one can cross over the ocean with sea-going vessels, one can cross the dangerous situation of the material ocean by living with a wife. So in this purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that the order of brahmacharya or pious student life, household life with a wife, retired life, and renounced life all depend for successful advancement on the householder who lives with a wife. So this is further explained in the purport. Because the householder maintains all the other orders of life. So that the other orders of life can engage themselves in activities for spiritual advancement, and they have very little time to earn livelihood. So they collect aims from the Hyastas. In that way, the householders, because they are supporting all the orders, they are also making spiritual advancement. So, in this purport describes Srila Prabhupada in text 19, 19 Srila, it describes the proper married life. But later Srila Prabhupada will say that this is an exaggeration, but let's first hear 19. So Kashyapa Muni to Diti. O respectful one, a wife is so helpful that she is called the better half of a man's body. So, O respectful one, a wife is so helpful that she is called the better half of a man's body because of her sharing in all auspicious activities. A man can move without anxiety and trusting all responsibilities to his wife. That the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, the wife is accepted as the better half of a man's body because she is supposed to be responsible for discharging half of the duties of the husband. So marriage is meant for cooperation, for spiritual advancement. So that's a point in Grihastha life. Man and wife have different relationships. The lowest relationship is the sexual craving. That is there, must be controlled. And then the next level is man and wife, they do things together, cooperate together in many things. Eating, sleeping, and so on. That nourishing the body. That cooperation is there, protection. So, but on a higher level, they are also have a relationship of friendship. Supposed to have a relationship of friendship. But on the highest level is, and that level should get the priority in Grihastha life, is cooperating or supporting each other for spiritual advancement. That's really what makes a difference between the Grihastha and the Gyamedi. Text 20. As a fourth commander very easily conquers invading plunderers by taking shelter of a wife, one can conquer the senses which are unconquerable in the other social orders. So, can someone read the purport of 20, please?
May I read, Maharaj?
Yes, please do.
Of the one which is on the screen.
Yeah.
Of the four orders of human society, the student or brahmachari order, the householder or grihastha order, the retired or vanaprastha order, and the renounced or sannyasi order. The householder is on the safe side. The bodily senses are considered plunderers of the fort of the body. The wife is supposed to be the commander of the fort, and therefore, whenever there is an attack on the body by the senses, it is the wife who protects the body from being smashed. The sex demand is inevitable for everyone, but one who has a fixed wife is safe from the onslaught of the sense enemies. A man who possesses a good wife does not create a disturbance in society by corrupting virgin girls. Without a fixed wife, a man becomes a debauchee of the first order and is a nuisance in society, unless he is a trained brahmachari, vanprasth, or sannyasi. Unless there is a rigid and systematic training of the brahmachari by the expert spiritual master, and unless the student is obedient, it is sure that the so-called brahmachari will fall prey to the attack of sex. Are so many instances of fall down, even for the great yogis like Vishwamitra. A grihastha is saved, however, because of his faithful wife. Sex life is a cause of material bondage, and therefore it is prohibited in three ashramas and is allowed only in the grihastha ashrama. The grihasth is responsible for producing first quality brahmacharis, vanprasthas, and sannyasis.
So, obtaining such a good wife is rare. Srila Prabhupada said, only by Krishna's blessings can one have a good wife. That's as described here in the purport, text 21. O Queen of the home, we are not able to act like you, nor could we repay for you what you have done. Sorry, that's not on the screen. O Queen of the home, we are not able to act like you, nor could we repay for what you have done, even if we worked for our entire life or even after death. To repay you is not possible, even for those who are admirers of personal qualities. Srila Prabhupada makes the point, so much glorification of a woman by her husband indicates that he is handpicked or talking in joke. In other words, the so-called man of the renounced order who has left his house and wife goes to hell if he again desires sexual pleasure, knowingly or unknowingly. In that way, the householders are on the side of safety. Therefore, husbands as a class cannot repay their debt to women either in this life or in the next. Text 32. That even though it is not possible to repay you, I shall satisfy your sex desire immediately for the sake of getting children. But you must wait for only a few seconds, so that others may not reproach me. So, there is a problem here. Kashyapa Muni requested to wait for a few seconds, so that others might not reproach him. He will explain his position in text 23. Please keep in mind, he is a worshipper of Lord Shiva. He says, 23. Sorry, nearly there. This particular time is most inauspicious because at this time the horrible-looking ghost and constant companions of the Lord of the ghosts are visible. Purport. Kashyapa has already told his wife Diti to wait for a while, and now he warns that her failure to consider the particular time will result in punishments from the ghost and evil spirits moving during this time along with their master Lord. Rudra, because he makes a point, it is Sandhya, it is twilight time, and that's a problem, because during that time, text 24, Lord Shiva, the king of ghosts, sitting on the back of his bell carrier, travels at this time, accompanied by ghosts who follow him for their welfare. So ghosts are bereft of a physical body because of their grievous sinful acts, such as committing suicide. So Lord Shiva was very kind to the ghosts. He sees that although they are condemned, they get spirit, he arranges that they get physical bodies. And how does he do that? He places them in the womb of women who indulge in sexual intercourse regardless of the restrictions of time and circumstances. Kashyapa Muni was aware of that. He was a worshipper of Lord Shiva. During twilight, Lord Shiva and all the ghosts and so on, they are going around trying to find transgressors of time, place, and then these ghosts who don't have bodies will take birth from the womb of these women who are not respecting this time, place, and circumstances. So Kashyapa wanted to impress this fact upon Diti, so that she made wait for a while. And because he's a worshipper of Lord Krishna, or of Lord Shiva, in text 25 and 26 is glorifying Lord Shiva. Text 25. Lord Shiva's body is reddish and he is unstained, but he is covered with ashes. His hair is dusty from the whirlwind dust of the burning crematorium. He is the younger brother of your husband, and he sees with his 3 eyes. There's a third eye here, from which fire can emanate. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains about what is Shiva Tattva, and how Kashyapa foresaw proper punishment by giving birth to a child of ghostly character. Can someone read the purport which is on the screen, please?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Please.
Could I read?
Yes.
Thank you. Lord Shiva is not an ordinary living entity, nor is he in the category of Vishnu or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is far more powerful than any living entity up to the standard of Brahma. Yet he is not on an equal level with Vishnu. Since he is almost like Lord Vishnu, Shiva can see past, present, and future. One of his eyes is like the sun, another is like the moon, and his third eye, which is between his eyebrows, is like fire. He can generate fire from his middle eye, and he is able to vanquish any powerful living entity, including Brahma. Yet he does not live pompously, sorry my pronunciation, in a nice house, etc. Nor does he possess any material properties, although he is master of the material world. He lives mostly in the crematorium, where dead bodies are burned, and the whirlwind dust of the crematorium is his bodily dress. He is unstained by material contamination. Kasyapa took him as his younger brother because the youngest sister of Diti, Kasyapa's wife, was married to Lord Shiva. The husband of one's sister is considered one's brother. By that social relationship, Lord Shiva happened to be the younger brother of Kasyapa. Kasyapa warned his wife that because Lord Shiva would see their sex indulgence, the time was not appropriate. Diti might argue that they would enjoy sex life in a private place, but Kasyapa reminded her that Lord Shiva has 3 eyes, called the sun, moon, and fire, and one cannot escape his vigilance any more than one can escape Vishnu. Although seen by the police, a criminal is sometimes not immediately punished. The police wait for the proper time to apprehend him. The forbidden time for sexual intercourse would be noted by Lord Shiva, and Diti would meet with proper punishment by giving birth to a child of ghostly character or a godless impersonalist. Kashyapa foresaw this, and thus he warned his wife Diti.
A warning. He continues glorifying Lord Shiva in 26. Lord Shiva regards no one as his relative, yet there is no one who is not connected with him. He does not regard anyone as very favorable or abominable. We respectfully worship the remnants of his foodstuff, and we vow to accept what is rejected by him. So Lord Shiva, as he is one of the 3 controllers of the universal affairs, is equal to everyone. But Lord Shiva is also the greatest devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is so great that he does not care for material prosperity. So text 27. Although no one in the material world is equal or greater than Lord Shiva, and although his unimpeachable character is followed by great souls to dismantle the mass of nations, he nevertheless remains as if a devil to give salvation to all devotees of the Lord. The Lord Shiva teaches the sincere devotees of the Lord how to practice detachment from material enjoyment. He is above, transcendental to the reactionary stage of the 3 modes of material nature. He is not affected by the association with Durga or creatures in ignorance. And he deals with Tamagun, but Lord Shiva himself is not affected by him. Now in text 28 we hear, in the purport we hear about the devotees of Lord Shiva. 28. Unfortunately, foolish persons, not knowing that he is engaged in his own self, that laugh at him, such foolish persons engage in maintaining the body, which is eatable by dogs, with dresses, ornaments, garlands, and ointments. So in the purport is explained about different kinds of devotees of Lord Shiva. One class of devotees are gross materialists. And then there are others who desire to become one with Shiva. They do not understand the real purpose of the Lord. Shiva, which is to serve the soul, so the real purpose of Lord Shiva, which is to serve the soul of the soul, Lord Krishna. So the main message here, when children are conceived in great lust, there is a big problem. 29. Demigods, 29. Demigods like Brahma also follow the religious rites observed by him. He is a controller of material energy, which causes the creation of the material world. That is great, and therefore his devilish characteristics are simply imitation. So, it's the greatness of Lord Shiva. So Durga is personified material energy, and Lord Shiva, being her husband, is a controller of the material energy. As his representative, Lord Shiva is identical with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is very great, and his renunciation of all material enjoyment is an ideal example of how we should be materially unattached. One should therefore follow in his footsteps and be unattached to matter, not imitate his uncommon acts, like drinking poison. We will hear that in the 8th canto, when the demons and the demigods cooperate to churn the ocean of milk, then the first thing that comes out is poison, and it destroys everything. So, but Lord Shiva agreed to drink the poison, and he drank all the poison to save the others. That so text 30. So text 30. Maitreya said, Diti was thus informed by her husband, but she was pressed by Cupid for sexual satisfaction. She caught hold of the clothing of the great Brahman sage, just like a shameless public prostitute. Can someone read the small purport, please, which is on the screen?
The difference between a married wife and a public prostitute is that one is restrained in sex life by the rules and regulations of the scriptures, whereas the other is unrestricted in sex life and is conducted solely by the strong sex urge. Although very enlightened, Kashyapa, the great sage, became a victim of his prostitute wife. Such is the strong force of material energy.
So no one should underestimate the strongness of the material energy. Devi Sagunamaya Mama Maya Dvachya, but by surrendering to Krishna we can easily come above it. Text 31. Understanding his wife's purpose, he was obliged to perform the forbidden act, and thus, after offering his obeisances and the worship of faith, he lay with her in a secluded place. So, in this purport, Srila Prabhupada glorifies Haridas Thakur. Kashyapa Muni knew that a child born of such untimely sexual intercourse would certainly not be a good child. When Haridas Thakur was tempted by a public prostitute at the dead of night, he avoided all her allurement because of his perfection in Krishna consciousness. That is the difference between a Krishna conscious person and others. So Thakur Haridas was not born of a Brahmin family, nor was he himself a Brahmin. Yet he could protect himself from such an attack due to his being Krishna conscious. Haridas Thakur chanted 192 rounds a day, practically 24 hours a day. Not that we chant 16 rounds and the rest of the day we are unconnected with Krishna, no. Always connected. Text 32. Thereafter the Brahmin took his bath in the water and controlled his speech by practicing trance, meditating on the eternal effulgence and chanting the holy Gayatri hymns within his mouth. So can someone read this purport, please? It's on the screen, 32.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, could I read again?
Yes, please read.
Thank you. As one has to take bath after using the toilet, so one has to wash himself with water after sexual intercourse, especially when at a forbidden time. Kashyapa Muni meditated on the impersonal Brahmayoti by chanting the Gayatri mantra within his mouth. When a Vedic mantra is chanted within the mouth, so that only the chanter can hear, the chanting is called japa. But when such mantras are chanted loudly, it is called kirtan. The Vedic hymn Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare can be chanted both softly to oneself or loudly. Therefore, it is called the Mahamantra or the great hymn. Kashyapa Muni appears to be an impersonalist. Comparing his character with that of Thakur Haridas, as referred to above, it is clear that the personalist is stronger in sense control than the impersonalist. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita as Param Tristva Nivardate. One ceases to accept lower grade things when one is situated in a superior condition. One is supposed to be purified after taking bath and chanting Gayatri, but the Mahamantra is so powerful that one can chant loudly or softly in any condition, and he is protected from all the evils of material existence.
So the mantra is so powerful that one can chant loudly or softly in any condition, and he is protected from all the evils of material existence. Text 33. O son of the Bharat family, Diti, after this, went nearer to her husband, her face lowered because of her faulty action. She spoke as follows. So, Srila Prabhupada in the purport says, sex life with one's wife is equal to prostitution. That if the regulations are not properly followed. And 34. The beautiful Diti said, my dear Brahman, kindly see that my embryo is not killed by Lord Shiva, the Lord of all living entities, because of the great offense I have committed against him. So, can someone read this small purport, please? Diti was conscious.
I can read, Maharaj.
Yes, please do. Thank you.
Diti was conscious of her offense and was anxious to be excused by Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva has two popular names, Rudra and Ashutosh. He is very prone to anger as well as quickly pacified. Diti knew that because of his being quickly angered, he might spoil the pregnancy she had so unlawfully achieved. But because he was also Ashutosh, she implored her Brahmin husband to help her in pacifying Lord Shiva, for her husband was a great devotee of Lord Shiva. In other words, Lord Shiva might have been angry with Diti because she obliged her husband to transgress the law, but he would not refuse her husband's prayer. Therefore, the application for excuse was submitted through her husband. She prayed to Lord Shiva as follows.
So she was fearful, and she sought protection from her husband. Text 35. Let me offer my obeisance unto the angry Lord Shiva, who is simultaneously a ferocious great demigod and fulfiller of all material desires. He is all auspicious and forgiving, but his anger can immediately move him to chastise. So Diti prayed for the mercy of Lord Shiva very cleverly, that so in the purport there is a prayer. Can someone read this purport, please? 35.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. May I read, Maharaj?
Yes, please.
Diti prayed for the mercy of Lord Shiva very cleverly. She prayed, "The Lord can cause me to cry, but if he likes, he can also stop my crying, because he is Ashutosh. He is so great that if he likes, he can immediately destroy my pregnancy. But by his mercy, he can also fulfill my desire that my pregnancy not be spoiled. Because he is all auspicious, it is not difficult for him to excuse me from being punished, although he is now ready to punish me because I have moved his great anger. He appears like a man, but he is the Lord of all men."
So, praying to Lord Shiva. 36. Let him be pleased with us, since he is my brother-in-law, the husband of my sister Sati. He is also the worshipful Lord of all women. He is the personality of all opulences and can show mercy towards women who are excused by the uncivilized hunters. So Lord Shiva is the husband of Sati, one of the sisters of Diti. So Diti invoked the pleasure of her sister Sati. So 37 and 38. Maitreya said, the great sage Kashyapa thus addressed his wife, who was trembling because of fear that her husband was offended. She understood that he had been dissuaded from his daily duties of offering evening prayers. Yet she desired the welfare of her children in the world. The learned Kashyapa said, because of your minds being polluted, because of defilement of the particular time, because of your negligence of my directions, and because of your being apathetic to the demigods, everything was inauspicious. So the purport of 38 here explains the conditions for having good progeny. It explains that the husband should be disciplined in religious and regulative principles. The wife should be faithful to the husband. One should perform the Garbhadan, and an auspicious time for sex life. Diti was informed that her children would not be worthy of the sons of a Brahmin. So it's clearly indicated herein that a Brahman's son is not always a Brahman. That personalities like Ravan and Hiranyakashipu were actually born of Brahmins, but they were not accepted as Brahmins because their father did not follow the regulative principles for their birth. Such children are called demons or rakshasas. During the age of Kali, there is no discipline in sex life. How then can one expect good children? But still, by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, they can be raised to the human standard by chanting the holy name of God. Even bad children. Text 39. O haughty one, you will have two contemptuous sons born of your condemned womb. Unlucky woman, they will cause constant lamentation to the three worlds. That So, Bhagavad Gita 140, there we have Arjuna warning about that he says, Adharma bhivavat Krishna pratushanti kolashya steshu dastu atas varsniya charte varnasangra. When irreligion is prominent in the family, O Krishna, the women of the family become polluted, and from the degradation of womanhood, O descendant of Vishnu, comes unwanted progeny. So if the mother is not good, there cannot be good sons. That's 40. They will kill poor faultless living entities, torture women, and enrage the great souls. Can someone read the purport?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, may I read again?
Please read. Thank you.
Demonic activities are predominant when innocent, faultless living entities are killed, women are tortured, and the great souls engaged in Krishna consciousness are enraged. In a demonic society, innocent animals are killed to satisfy the tongue, and women are tortured by unnecessary sexual indulgence. Where there are women and meat, there must be liquor and sex indulgence. When these are predominant in society, by God's grace, one can expect a change in the social order by the Lord Himself or by His bona fide representative.
So, text, thank you. Text 41. At that time, the Lord of the universe, Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the well-wisher of all living beings, will descend and kill them, just as Indra smashes the mountains with his thunderbolts. So, Srila Prabhupada start quoting with Bhagavad Gita 4.8, Paritranaya sadhanam vinasaya saduskridam dharmasam stapanartaya sambhavan yuge yuge yuge. Yuge. To deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to establish the principles of religion, I appear millennium after millennium, but the Lord descends only to give relief to his ardent devotees. Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport. The killing of the miscreant by the Lord is also the mercy of the Lord toward the miscreant. Although apparently the Lord takes the side of the devotee, since the Lord is absolute, there is no difference between his activities of killing the miscreants and favoring the devotees. That equality is not easy to understand and will be further discussed in chapter 1 of the 7th canto. That's a question from Yudhishthira Maharaj to Narada Muni. Narada Muni will reply in the chapter and then gives the example of, then he tells the history of Prahlad Maharaj and Hiranyakashipu. Text 42. Dita speaks that is she going to be sad? We will hear. Diti said, it is very good that my sons will be magnanimously killed by the arms of the personality of Godhead with his Sudarshan weapon. O my husband, may they never be killed by the wrath of the Brahmin devotees. So that's interesting. Because the Lord, Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, the Lord does not appear when the Brahmins become angry at someone, because the wrath of the Brahmin is sufficient in itself. He certainly appears, however, when his devotees simply become sorry. A devotee of the Lord never prays to the Lord to appear for the sake of the troubles of the miscreants caused for him, and he never bothers him by asking for protection. Rather, the Lord is anxious to give protection to the devotees. If someone is killed by the will of the Lord and is thus fortunate enough to see the arms of the Lord, that is sufficient for his liberation. Such good fortune is not achieved even by the great sages, so she was deeply faithful to Lord Krishna despite her shortcomings. Interesting. Here it is explained what has to be feared. What has to be feared is displeasing the Brahmins. So, now in text 43. A person who is condemned by a Brahmin or is always fearful to other living entities is not favored either by those who are already in hell or by those in the species in which he is born. So, Prabhupada writes in a purport, an example of a condemned species is the life of a dog. Then 44 till 45. The learned Kashyapa said, because of your lamentation, penitence, and proper deliberation, and also because of your unflinching faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead and your adoration for Lord Shiva and me, one of the sons, Prahlad, of your son, Hiranyakashipu, will be an approved devotee of the Lord, and his fame will be broadcast equally with that of the Personality of Godhead. So he cursed her, but he also benedicted her. So 46. In order to follow in his footsteps, saintly persons will try to emulate his character by practicing freedom from animosity, just as the purifying processes rectify gold of inferior quality. So can someone read the purport which is on the screen, 46?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, could I read?
Please.
Yoga practice, the process of purifying one's existential identity, is based mainly on self-control. Without self-control, one cannot practice freedom from animosity. In the conditional state, every living being is envious of another living being, but in the liberated state, there is an absence of animosity. Prahlad Maharaj was tortured by his father in so many ways, yet after the death of his father, he prayed for his father's liberation by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He did not ask any benediction that he might have asked, but he prayed that his atheistic father might be liberated. He never cursed any of the persons who engaged in torturing him at the instigation of his father.
Thus Prahlad Maharaj. But did he hear she lamented? And that lamentation purified her heart. So we will also see in the beginning of the 6th canto, Ajamil had a near-death experience, and after that he lamented and he became purified. Of course, we have many songs of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Sharanagati where he laments, I have served wicked men, and so on and so on. So it's not that if one becomes humble, that it feels good. That's interesting. Psychiatrists, they will tell the opposite. Rise your self-esteem, they will say. But here it's recommended. When laments, become humble. Text 47. Everyone will be pleased with him because the personality of God, the supreme controller of the universe, is always satisfied with a devotee who does not wish for anything beyond in him. So, Prahlad Maharaj, he will be liked by everyone. And that's explained here in the purport 47. Can someone read purport 47?
Hare Krishna.
Please, read.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead is situated everywhere as a Super Soul, and He can dictate to anyone and everyone as He likes. The would-be grandson of deity who was predicted to be a great devotee would be liked by everyone, even by the enemies of his father, because he would have no other vision besides the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A pure devotee of the Lord sees the presence of his worshipable Lord everywhere. The Lord reciprocates in such a way with all living entities in whom the Lord is dwelling. A super soul, also like a pure devotee, because the Lord is present in their hearts and can dictate to them to be friendly to his devotee. There are many instances in history wherein even the most ferocious animal became friendly to a pure devotee of the Lord.
Thank you very much. Text 48. The topmost devotee of the Lord will have expanded intelligence and expanded influence and will be the greatest of the great souls. Due to mature devotional service, he will certainly be situated in transcendental ecstasy and will enter in the spiritual sky after quitting this material world. So in the purport it's explained here, there are 3 stages of transcendental development in devotional service. The Sthayi-bhav, continued ecstasy; Anubhav, a particular type of relationship; Mahabhav, the personal pleasure, potential energy of the Lord. That like Mother Yasoda, her Sthayi-bhav was her constant love for Krishna. Her Anubhav, she was playing the role of the mother for mother-son relationship. And Mahabhav was a great pleasure she felt. So Prahlad would constantly meditate on the Lord and reiterate his activities, speak about the Lord's activities. Because of his constant meditation, he would easily transfer himself to the spiritual world after quitting this material body. Such meditation is still more conveniently performed by chanting and hearing the holy name of the Lord. This is especially recommended in Kali Yuga. Srila Prabhupada says. 49. He will be a virtuously qualified reservoir of all good qualities. He will be jolly and happy in others' happiness, distressed in others' distress, and will have no enemies. He will be a destroyer of lamentation of the lamentation of all the universes, like the pleasant moon after the summer run. So Prahlad Maharaj, he will be a role model or an exemplary devotee of the Lord. He had all good qualities that are humanly possible. So the most important characteristic of a pure devotee, that is not lampata, is virtuous, And another quality is that he always eager to mitigate the miseries of suffering humanity. What is this misery of suffering humanity? It is forgetfulness of Krishna. A pure devotee therefore always tries to evoke everyone's Krishna consciousness, the cure for all miseries. Text 50. We are nearing the end. Your grandson will be able to see inside and outside the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose life is the beautiful goddess of fortune. The Lord can assume the form desired by the devotee, and his face is always beautifully decorated with earrings. So a pure devotee, he becomes attached to a particular form of the Lord. And the Lord is pleased to appear before him in that form. So the last sentence of the purport says, but whenever a devotee sees the Lord, he sees him in a most beautifully decorated form, accompanied by his constant companion, the goddess of fortune, who is eternally beautiful. So devotees attracted to a particular form of the Lord. And the Lord appears in that form. So once Narada Muni was telling Hanuman, Lord Krishna wants to see in Dwarka. And Hanuman was not interested. So Narada went to Dwarka and told this to Krishna. And Krishna said, no, you must say to Hanuman that Lord Ram wants to see you. So Narada Muni went back to Kimpurusha Varsha, where Hanuman still is today, and told him, Lord Ram wants to see you in Dwarka. So immediately he went to Dwarka, and Narada Muni also went, and he saw that Lord Krishna had taken the form of Ram, and Rukmini the form of Sita, and Balaram had taken the form of Lakshmana. Anyway, that's in the Puranas. Text 51. 51. Maitreya's conclusion to the chapter. Maitreya said, hearing that her grandson would be a great devotee, and that her son would be killed by Krishna, Diti was highly pleased in mind. So Diti, she knew that being killed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead is a great fortune. Since the Lord is absolute, his acts of violence and non-violence are both on the absolute platform. There is no difference in such acts of the Lord. Mundane violence and non-violence have nothing to do with the Lord's acts. A demon killed by him attains the same result as one who attains liberation after many births of penance and austerity. Of course, we also know who these personalities are. Hiranyakasipu, Hiranyaksha, Ravan, Kumbhakarna, Shishupal, Dantavakra, Jai and Vijay. So this ends the Bhaktivedanta purports to the third canto, 14th chapter, entitled The Pregnance of Diti in the evening. Any questions, comments?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, we hear that Saint Kashyapa was a devotee of Lord Shiva. Whereas we see like when the wife is praying for the benefit of the progeny, that time she is asking for them to be killed by the Lord's Sudarshan. So that means they are aware that uh, the Supreme Personality of Godhead weapon is. So, like, is it a choice to be the worshipper of Lord Shiva or something like after being like known to it still?
My understanding is, and that appears from the purpose of Srila Prabhupada, Kashyapa Muni, he writes, is an impersonalist. He was trying to merge with the Brahmajyoti, mystic meditation, and he was a worshipper of Lord Shiva. But Diti is different. Because in a purport, Srila Prabhupada speaks about our faith in Lord Krishna. Even she did this abominable act, still it did not affect her faith in Lord Krishna. She was a devotee. So we have a different situation here. That she had faith in Lord Krishna. So yes, that she, therefore, she was blessed to take part in Krishna's pastimes in this beautiful way, that our grandson would be Prahlad Maharaj. That would be a great blessing. Does that clarify?
Yes, Maharaj. Thanks a lot, Maharaj. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Ambika, Mother Ambika, please.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. I wanted to ask such a question when in the text 19 it explains that a wife is accepted as a better half of man's body, and this was for spiritual advancement. So every time before I have understood that a male body is more like beneficial for or favorable for spiritual advancement. So could you a little bit elaborate from that?
Well, we learn here from there's a difference in psychology between women and men. And that appears from this pastime. Kashyapa Muni, he had a male body, yes, and he saw things with quite a cool head, although he became bewildered. Diti was more bewildered by the duality of this world, good and bad. She was a little envious because the other had children and she wanted also that, and she was driven by that. So this is all the emotional impacts of the three modes of material nature. It means that the subtle body of a woman is different. It seems that intelligence and emotions are more intertwined, are mixed, bound together, and it's difficult to separate them. Whereas for a man, it's more easy to look within things only intelligence and be detached. This is a general difference on the subtle matter plane, which appears from this pastime. And although Kashyapa Muni told her it's not a moment, she could not follow his instructions. She was carried away by her emotions very strongly. But whether one has the body of a man or a woman, if one practices devotional service, there is no bar. And Krishna says that in Bhagavad Gita, Vaishya, Sudra, Stri, it doesn't matter. Everyone can practice devotional service and transcends these modes of nature. So it means that Ditya no sadhana, he was not fixed in spiritual practice. And Kashyapa Muni was fixed in spiritual practice, but was weak because he was an impersonalist. And still, because one can only transcend the three modes of nature by mamsya vyabhicharana bhakti yogana sevati, by transcending the modes of nature, by performing unalloyed devotional service. Unalloyed means without motive. But she was carried away by the motives, personal motives yet, and she could not withstand it. So these are general characteristics, but in Kali Yuga, men are like women. There's not much difference. That they are also completely engrossed, controlled by the three modes. But generally, yes, a male body is more favorable, but it is not a guarantee. If one practices nicely the purpose of devotional service, whatever body you will have, you will transcend that. And the point is that this Mataji, one of the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, asked Srila Prabhupada, and she said, I have the body of a woman. Spiritual making spiritual advancement for me is very difficult. And Prabhupada replied, if you think you are a woman, yes, it will be difficult. So we should never think like that. I'm not this body. I'm not a man or a woman. I'm a spirit soul, and I'm so fully on Krishna's pastimes. And it doesn't matter. You will transcend that. And like I said, yes, there is a difference, but in Kali Yuga, difference between men and women is very, very little. It's all polluted and corrupted anyway. I try to explain this a bit, Mother Ambika. It's not an easy matter to understand, but I try to explain what I've understood. Does that help?
Yes, thank you, Maharaj. It's very helpful.
Thank you. Okay, good. Then we go to Patrick.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. My question was regarding appropriate response of Kashyapa, because Kashyapa warned Diti that it could be inauspicious, and Prabhupada writes that Kashyapa was a henpecked husband, that is why he gave in to the demands. But although he warned, Diti was too insistent. So, idealistically speaking, what could have been appropriate response? Like Prabhupada writes that he could have spoken more, more outright, more. So, would that have stopped Diti's action, or would that have avoided sexual intercourse in eventually? Because even though Kashyapa knew and he warned Diti, Diti did not. heed to his advice.
Yeah. Srila Prabhupada writes he was handpicked. He was, and that's one, handpicked. Second thing Srila Prabhupada says is he's spiritually weak. In one of the purports he said he should have told Diti with firm conviction, you should wait, don't come here. But he was too weak. He was also afflicted by lust. And when once lust enters your consciousness, it's too late. Too late. You cannot withstand it. And so that's what happened. Ideally, he should have said and be firm, you stay away from me later. But he allowed her to approach him because he was weak. Does that help, Pratik?
Yes, Maharaj. Another query in this regard is, uh, wouldn't it be like Prabhupada also mentions earlier that it is when Deity is speaking to Kashyapa, when Kashyapa is meditating, Kashyap Muni is meditating, that it is duty of men to protect the woman and fulfill her necessities. So, because Deity was so afflicted with the desire, and she couldn't help herself, would saying strongly, that is what I'm trying to understand, that would speaking strongly have avoided or have instilled something? I mean, how would it have helped Deity in that regards? She would still be afflicted by the lusty desire,
Yeah.
wouldn't she be?
Srila Prabhupada writes that it was just not appropriate moment. She should wait for 10-20 minutes. It's not a long time. That was the point. But the point, it was in the middle of twilight, the very most dangerous time. But she couldn't wait 10 minutes. Because Kashyapa Muni would have done the needful, but not right now. That was the point. And anyway, she should have been strong. Wait 10 minutes, and then he will. So does that help to understand?
Yes, Maharaj.
Thank you.
Okay. I had another question, but Shamanand Prabhu can ask and I can ask.
Okay, good. So, Shamananda Prabhu.
Yes, Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you. I have to say I missed a small part of the discussion, especially the answer to Ambika's Mataji's question, but I'll ask still, maybe it was answered then. I understand the whole situation, and it is a very unfortunate event, like giving an example of how today the whole world is unfortunate. But when one reads the purport, one could get the image that Srila Prabhupada was very harsh with dealing with Diti. He names her a prostitute wife, and Kashyapa's being weak is just a weakness. So we're all weak, and Diti was also just weak. So how to explain that great difference in language Srila Prabhupada used? Can you tell something?
Yeah, one must understand the context, the whole context in which this happens. So first, it makes the point that in marriage there can also be prostitution. if it's done out of sense gratification, then it's prostitution. And I feel in the purport it's not so harsh to Diti, but is harsh to all his followers who would follow this bad example. And that's what I felt is Srila Prabhupada. Because Diti has a problem here. And Diti later will come back in a later canto. And because after Hiranyaksa is killed, she will ask, what will she ask? Kashyapa Muni. He said, please give me a benediction. She pleased her husband very nicely. She wanted a benediction. And then Kashyapa Muni said, yeah, what do you want? Oh, said, I want to kill Indra because Lord Vishnu Varadev appeared because of him. And he's responsible for the death of my son. So I want to kill him. So he has a lot of dealings there with his wives. That so Diti.
Kommt noch mal ganz kurz in die Küche. Der muss etwas auswechseln.
So yes.
Oh, sorry.
That's the first thing. Srila Prabhupada is stressing this so that we can learn this principle. That Diti has a role to play. So the second point you make is everyone in Kali Yuga is weak. Yes, we are all. Srila Prabhupada says, yes, we will all fall down and get up and fall down and get up. But as we make a spiritual advancement, it will be less frequent and finally will come through it. So it's a struggle. It's a struggle. But we learn here from this purport also that we should be firm in our practice. Thinking, not just chanting 16 rounds, but always be connected with Krishna. And then we will be spiritually strong. So he's stressing that and gives the example of Haridas Thakur. He was a Muslim background and still he became the Namacharya and a great example of much greater than Kashyapa Muni. Srila Prabhupada is stressing these things. If you put that out of the context of these teachings and say, oh, Prabhupada called called Diti a prostitute and that's the fault of Prabhupada, then one has not really understood the context. Srila Prabhupada appreciates Diti also in different places because she will be her grandson will be Prahlad Maharaj, is the benediction that she gets. And also the greatness of Diti is she's cursed by her husband and benedicted, but she's not disturbed. She's happy. My sons will be killed by the Supreme. That's good because she has faith in Krishna. So and Prabhupada glorifies her. If we don't see that, and only that one sentence, then we don't get the point. Does that help, Shamananda?
Yes, very much, Maharaj. Thank you for that very, very complete answer and very balanced and showing the whole context. Thank you so much.
Yes,
Hare Krishna.
I try also my best. Thank you. So, Pratik Prabhu, if you have another question, please.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, my question was that Diti's main happiness is due to Prahlad Maharaj being devotee of the Lord, or her son's getting liberation through Lord? And how do we understand her happiness of sons getting killed by Krishna? Even though that is liberation for them, but it won't be. I mean, being being a mother, she would, you know, it is like usually we expect it to be very disheartening.
Yeah,
So
that's a nice observation. It means Diti, although she was temporarily afflicted by lust, had a lot of knowledge of devotional service. And she came to the point, whatever happens, good or bad, it's the mercy of the Lord. She knew that being killed by the Lord, or the Lord means that the Lord gives liberation. And it's a position that even is not achieved by great yogis. Life after life after life, they strive for liberation and they don't get it. And here they get it without any difficulty. So she had this knowledge, and therefore her faith. That's something to understand from the Bhagavatam, from the scriptures. That faith in Krishna, if one has strong faith, that is realized knowledge, that's higher than having knowledge. So the higher knowledge is devotion for Krishna. And yes, she was a devotee. And it's something to be learned for us. As a devotee, our life is not always, it's not always rose and Charanamrita, a life of a devotee. We will all have our ups and downs. We learn from Brahma. Good progeny, bad progeny, up and downs. And a devotee accepts that. And she saw, yes, that's very auspicious. My sons will be killed by the Supreme Lord, and she felt so happy. So that means she had higher realizations that although due to her weakness and being afflicted by lust, temporarily that's covered, but then after the forbidden act she came to her senses and she understood. She remembered. She was fixed in her realizations. So that means Diti is not an ordinary person. Does that help to understand that?
yes, Maharaj.
Okay.
Uh,
Anything else?
yes, Maharaj. What should a devotee do when one is afflicted by such lust? Like Diti, we see she has full of realizations. Like now you explained, and we see her character is. I mean, she lamented immediately after the forbidden act. So, how can a devotee who is in practitioner stage avoid this situation? And if situation arises, what shall one do?
We find in the 6th canto, you will hear about Ajamil. Ajamil had a relationship with a prostitute. His life was a life of lust practically. But in his youth he had been a devotee. And somewhere or other Krishna arranged, at the time of death he called his son Narayan. And by calling out the holy name at the time of death, he got a near-death experience, and he was protected by Vishnu Dutas. He saw the Vishnu Dutas, who were like Krishna. He got 3 benefits from that near-death experience. First, his life was prolonged. The second, he could not forget his Vishnu Dutas and what they told to the Yamadutas. And the third thing, and that's important, he remembered his sinful life and lamented. And he said, I don't want it. So that's the point. A devotee may afflicted by lust and fall down, but he says, I don't want it. It's an accident, but I don't want it. If lust comes in your mind and you fix on or you meditate on it, you are finished. You must go to it. And the devotee may be a victim, but he says, I don't want it. That's different. That's different than just saying, I feel lust and I'm going to enjoy. No, a devotee does not want it. So it's an inner decision, an inner attitude that we have to develop against lust. Accidents will be there, but if it happens, we say, I don't want it. And the second thing is, I continue my devotional service. I'm not discouraged by it. I get up and go on. So these are inner attitudes which are healthy to deal with lust in one's life. Of course, what protects us is a good sadhana and so on. Not sleeping too much, not too less, not eating too much, not too less. But even by following all these things, one can be a victim. So, does that help? There's much more to say about them, but I try to give basic principles here that are helpful in dealing with lust. Because finally, to get out of lust is that one is always engaged in devotional service and has no time for it. That's the way. Good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, Mother Ambika.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj. I still wanted to ask one question, just a simple question that can a pious mother, a devotee mother, have, for example, a disabled child or hyperactive child or child with difficult behavior, some problems like this? Is it possible, or is there only always something impious, like sinful acts behind?
First, in this world, that one is always influenced by 3 modes. One may be prominently in goodness, but there's always an influence of rajas and tamas. It's never pure. If we look at the descendants of Nityananda, and Bhaktivaibhava Thakur, not Vetacharya, it's not that all their sons became devotees. We see also Brahma, different kinds of sons, and we have heard that in the descriptions that, yes, one is always influenced by these modes, yes, you can be a pious mother and so on, but still, one gets a son who may be disabled, and a devotee accepts that, because I've personal experience with it. I have a son, he's now 34 years old, and he's disabled. So he has an intellectual disability in the brain that he can function more or less normally, but writing, and so it's very difficult for him, but yeah, otherwise he's doing well. So yes, we have no control about this. We are instruments of Krishna. Diti was a devotee and her sons were the Daityas, the demons. That yes, difficult to say. But what Srila Prabhupada gives here is to have good sons, one must do the Garbhadan samskar. And that's important. If one does that, one will have good sons, good progeny. If one, that does not mean that there may be no disability. That may be there, but you may have still a good son. It doesn't depend on just the body. So these things are there, but yes, there is also a previous karma. It's not that because you become a devotee, your previous karma is not there anymore. No, Krishna says, okay, you become a devotee, that's very good. Now be responsible. Be responsible and accept your previous karma in this life. It will be only one life anymore. Until this, and then no karma anymore, no next life. But yes, we must accept. And therefore, devotee accept every situation, good or bad, as Krishna's mercy. And that's a very important principle in devotional service. Don't have expectations to become happy in this world. It will not happen. It will not happen. It's not possible. Because it's a place of unhappiness. But if we engage in devotional service, then we get out of this material consciousness and enter a consciousness of constant spiritual bliss. And that's the blessing that we get by progressing in devotional service. Does that help, Brambik?
Yes, thank you very much, Maharaj.
Thank you. Okay. So Mother Sakti Manta, please.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, I have a question regarding accident happening in a devotee's life. Like you just mentioned that a devotee can accidentally fall victim to lust. So could you please elaborate on this term, accident? What is exactly the meaning of accident? Does it mean just that it happens only once? Or if the behavior is like prolonged over a period of time and repeated, so how do we take it as an accident? Could you please explain?
Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3. Text 34, purport. For example, sex enjoyment is a necessity for the conditioned soul, and sex enjoyment is allowed under the license of marriage ties. According to scriptural injunction, one is forbidden to engage in sex relationships with any woman other than one's wife. All other women are to be considered as mothers, but in spite of such injunction, a man is still inclined to have sex relationships with other women. These propensities have to be cursed, otherwise they will be stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization. As long as the material body is there, the necessities of the material body are allowed, but under rules and regulations, and yet we should not rely upon the control of such allowances. One has to follow those rules and regulations unattached to them, because practice of sense gratification under regulations may also lead one to go astray, as much as there is always a chance of an accident, even on the royal roads. That's what Srila Prabhupada means by accident. We follow the regulative principles and we try our best, but in spite of that, sometimes we may be a victim. But we don't want it. And that's an accident. There may always be an accident on the royal road. Although they may be very carefully maintained, no one can guarantee that there will be no danger on the safest road. The sense enjoyment spirit has been current for a long time, owing to material association. Therefore, in spite of regulated sense enjoyment, there is every chance of falling down. Therefore, any attachment for regulated sense enjoyment must also be avoided by all means. Even attachment for regulated sense enjoyment. But attachment to Krishna consciousness, or acting always in the loving service of Krishna, detaches one from all kinds of sensory activities. So Srila Prabhupada said, if you are Krishna conscious, you will not fall down. But if you interrupt it in your consciousness, danger at every moment to fall down. So that's what Srila Prabhupada says. An accident will always be there, because there is danger at every step in this world. Lust, everything goes in lust in this modern society, and devotees do not want that. But very difficult to get out of it. Therefore, we must always live in the association of devotees. That will protect us on this. Otherwise, that's what Srila Prabhupada said when you asked this question. I was thinking immediately of the purport of 334 Bhagavad Gita. You can read it again. That's Prabhupada speaking and answering your question, and I have not much to add to it. Does that help?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Then we are at the end of this section. I was happy to be at your service. We have one day free tomorrow, because tomorrow I have an important meeting and I've been requested to be there. And I followed the schedule of Bhurijan Prabhu. He did also this chapter 14 in one section. But there were very interesting questions. I thank you for that, and wish you the best, and hopefully in a few months again we will meet for another section. I think I will come back for chapter 25 or 26, I think, of this third canto in the summer. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Jai Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, no more.
Krishna.
Hare
Thanks a lot.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.